Hey guys, it's Zeteo here. Today we're doing a replay analysis. This was submitted to the Academy chats. Um, and actually, it's a kind of a two-part thing where there's really two replays that this person sent. But I am going to kind of forego the other one, the Isthmus one, because really a lot of the same information can apply there as as well as the one in this game. But we are doing an 8v8 review, so anyways, let's jump into it. All right, so we are taking a look at Sensu, our pink player here. So this is Swirly Rock. It's kind of an interesting thing, this position here. Obviously you want to grab your own mexes, and then you also have these back mexes to go for, and then you also, primarily want to walk down this path and up to the high ground and grab the mexes here as you can. I think it used to be where players would this position would also play center, but I guess it's become a little bit more like play for that position and let the other player grab the center stuff. But yeah, it's very important that center does well. So I don't know. I suppose you can kind of say, well, it's the red player. Actually, it looks like the OS isn't lining up, so I suppose auto balance is off for this match. So you're actually the highest OS on this team at 20. So this is quite a low OS kind of lobby. All right, so let's just take a look at what you actually do here. So you got your resbot out. Unfortunately, sitting a little bit idle. I'm not sure what you're paying attention to. Okay, so there goes the resbot out to, sorry for the weird camera angles, I just want to see what your view actually looked like. But yeah, get your resbots out, start reclaiming that stuff. You really need energy, and you also did not grab this mex here. Sorry, I have drawings off. I should probably draw. Let's just turn that. Where is it? Drawing. Here we go. Okay, I'll just turn those on so I can draw. I didn't realize that it would actually turn that off. But anyways, all right, so very important to start grabbing mexes ASAP. And in this position, you really should start with all three mexes before your lab. And that means walking for that third mex. Now, walking's not great. You don't want to do a ton of walking if you're just like, you want to like spend your build power from your commander as much as possible and do as little walking as possible. But for this mex, I would say it's worth it because, your commander generates 2 metal per second. Each of these mexes is another 2, so that's 6 total. It's not a lot of metal. So you're sitting here kind of stalling, especially since this is primarily a solar map, or at least you generally build a lot of solars because wind is so low. So it's very important to get that metal ASAP. And note that some of these bushes or whatever, these plants here, have some metal in them. So that's why the resbots are so important. So you want to, send them out and grab that. Right now they're just grabbing the ones with energy. Which is, I mean, if you need energy, that's fine. But right now you don't need energy. You actually need the metal. So I would maybe just move them up here to grab these here that have the metal in them. And then, okay, so meanwhile, you're moving your comm out now. You have some cons boosting stuff at your base. This is all good. This line of solars, not needed right now. Right now, you desperately need metal. So I would definitely send one of these ASAP to grab this. Like I was saying, like it's kind of better to just have that ahead of time. And then you also want to send a con out here to grab these mexes in the back, because this is another 6 metal that you don't have. And that would double your income, which is huge. Definitely want to have that. It is good that you're moving your commander out. I would maybe make a pit stop here because you do need that metal so badly. So I would maybe grab that one, continue forward. You have some units out here as well, so potentially you could set up a little bit further out and skip this mex. But I mean, right now you do need the metal, so it's kind of fine. But yeah, in this forward position here, it's a little bit better to perhaps move your commander all the way through and maybe set up an LT here if you can. And that'll just make it so that your opponent can't just walk up and start doing stuff as well. So it's just kind of like you're kind of skipping some of the mexes right now in order to have a better position so that you can claim all the mexes for yourself and so that they don't have it. So that can be a strong move as well. Let's see, taking a look at your base once again. The construction turret, like it's 200 metal, it's quite a bit of energy, and then it has 200 build power, which since you're already out of metal, that extra build power is not going to help you. So this can actually be delayed significantly. And instead, you can prioritize grabbing these mexes and doing stuff like that. One thing that might help a lot is any cons at your base or near your base, just have like basically queue up like by holding shift. You know, you tell them to build stuff and then you queue up, go assist the lab afterwards. And that way your cons aren't sitting idle. They can at least help with producing units. And then you also have them in one spot so that you can see how many cons you have that you could potentially, you know, send back out to go build stuff. And that way it's just like a little bit easier to keep track of. All right, so looking back at the front, it looks like your commander ran into their commander, and so you're just kind of desperately trying to hold this position here. Looks like your resbot was picked off as well, which is a bit unfortunate. But yeah, I would say in this position, this is fine. Like to build LTs here is like pretty normal. So this is all good stuff right now. But yeah, it is, you know, it's basically closing in on 6 minutes. And you still don't have these mexes here, and you don't have these mexes. So definitely prioritize that. And I think those early pawns that you built weren't entirely needed. Or at least they weren't really needed to just sit up here. Potentially they could have run forward and done some damage to the base of your opponent. But yeah, as it is, like sitting in that defensive posture makes it really difficult. Or sorry, it doesn't make anything difficult. It just isn't a necessary thing because you want to prioritize growing your economy so that you have more economy to use for later. And if you're not going to do that, those units should be used aggressively to attack your opponent's economy. So the fact that you built those units so early and weren't aggressive with them means they're just kind of sitting and not doing as much as they could be doing. So it's kind of like wasted money that could have been spent on growing your economy quicker to have a stronger, like, I mean, I hesitate to say early game because like that is, you know, part of the early game is kind of like, I guess the very early game versus the rest of the early game or something like that. Basically, you know, like having or not building the units that early and delaying it a little bit so that you can instead, you know, work on infrastructure and growing your metal income and your, you know, keeping up with your energy and just having a bigger support base so that you can crank out more units faster later, you know, just a little bit later on. And so having those units sit there is kind of like a wasted opportunity. And if you're going to have them, at the very least, you want to try to delay your opponent's economy so that they aren't growing as much. Like that's kind of like the whole reason to have early units. And if you wanted to build like a pawn or two, like that's fine. Like it's really not bad. And just have them sit there and just guard the place in case there's like scouts or something like that, you know, as you're moving your commander forward and as you're doing stuff in the back, like grabbing these mexes. Okay, so looks like orange has done some damage to your opponent, which is great. Yeah, actually looking at this, like, yeah, that's significant damage. So this puts you in a reasonable position here, but unfortunately you don't have stuff coming out here. Okay, that's a lot of pinging for just one unit. I mean, I guess to be fair, to destroy everything of that player. So, okay, it looks like brown is taking these mexes. And so these mexes are primarily yours, but, you know, since you haven't taken them, it's good that somebody in your team has. Because that's income that's just lost otherwise. And it's very important to maintain that. In a lot of ways, bar is actually very much a, you know, it's like growing your economy as quickly as you can. and try to just have more of it than your opponent in order to have more units to destroy your opponent with. You know, and so there's certain points of the game where it's like, okay, there's mexes out on the map. Let's go grab those ASAP so that we grow our economy quickly. And then, you know, all those gets taken up, and you guys are fighting over the mexes and you know, trying to secure them for yourself. And as that kind of gets more like, it becomes harder and harder to do that because more and more units are out, then it becomes more like you know, working towards T2 in order to have T2 economy to boost that, you know, to boost what you have even further. And 1v1s, for example, it's actually more profitable to just keep taking all the mexes that you can over going T2. Because, like, in 1v1, there's so much more space, there's so many more mexes for you to control, that the more of those that you, like, it's basically just like a big significant amount of metal to potentially have, and the more of that you have, the better. And if you go T2, then you're just kind of spending a lot of metal on teching to have more expensive units that can't really threaten or protect all those mexes that you have across the map. You know, so T2 is actually delayed a lot in 1v1 for that reason. All right, so, but yeah, looking at what you're doing here, you got pushed out of this position. You got some pawns in the back here in case, you know, something happens and they run through. You got a wall here to help protect that location as well. So, I mean, it's kind of a rough situation for you because you only have so many mexes to work with. Because you only have all this here. And with Brown controlling these mexes in the back, that's just income that you don't have. All right, so now you're building your own T2 lab here. Which, I mean, okay, so given the situation, if this was a 1v1 and all you're paying attention to is your lane, this would be fine. Because you're making it so that your opponent can attack you, and then you're just, like, teching up behind it, which is kind of just fine. But this is a team game, and you have allies that already have T2 on the way. So what that means is you can actually buy a T2 constructor from an ally. And that saves you a ton of money. So this T2 lab is nearly 3,000 metal. And since it's a solar map, you're spending a lot of money on in order to have energy. And so it's very hard to afford this in any meaningful amount of time. Now, red controls a lot more metal, and they already have T2. So what you can do to help yourself out is ask the red player, can I buy a T2 constructor? You just do, like, can I buy T2? Or something like that. And, I mean, I know there's a new lobby, so maybe they won't understand or know how to do that. But it is definitely much more ideal to buy the constructor because it is far cheaper. So a T2 constructor is around 500 or so metal. You know, compared to 3,000, that's really cheap. So if they already have it, you know, it's kind of better that only one person has the T2 at this point. So yeah, just look for players that have it instead of building your own when possible. And then, yeah, so I walked you through, I guess, pinging, asking for it. If they say yes, you want to just give them that 500 metal. Now, I'm not, well, actually, can I do it this way? No, okay. Well, since I'm a spectator, I don't see the buttons here, but there's 3 buttons here. There's one for sharing units, one for sharing metal, and one for sharing energy. The one for sharing units is like 2 arrows kind of like pointing away from each other. The metal one is a metal plate, and then the energy one is lightning bolts. And for the metal and energy, just click it and, you know, pull the slider up or whatever, and you know, give that player, you know, the metal or the energy. For units, all you got to do is select the units and hit the share, or yeah, hit the share button, and it'll give it to whatever player connected to that button. But yeah, in this case, you would be buying, so all you'd have to do is pay the metal, pull that metal slider up till it says 500. Obviously, you don't have metal right now, and you didn't before. So what you want to do to afford that is to pause your lab, maybe even reclaim it, so that you have 500 metal, and then you can pull that slider to 500 to pay for it. So that can help you out a lot in order to get this your T2 going a lot faster, and then you're not slowing yourself down by paying for this big lab. You instead can upgrade your mexes and just have things like these butlers, have your constructor, maybe, or maybe you build a couple of extra constructors just to assist your T2 guy, and upgrade these mexes ASAP. And you can actually do this without having a lab. You can actually, well, clearly you know this already because you've reclaimed your T1 lab, but for anyone else out there watching, reclaiming your stuff returns 100% of the metal. So it's a strong move to kind of like take the metal that you put into a lab, because labs cost a lot of metal, and turn it into resources or turn it into a different lab. And so you just, you take your builders, you hit E, and you just like click on the building. So this would be like, you can even reclaim your T2 lab after you get your T2 constructor. Now note, the T2 lab costs 2,900 metal. You can't store that much metal. You just don't have the storage for it. So you do want to build a metal storage if you're going to reclaim a T2 lab. T1 lab is like 650, 720 for a vehicle lab. So you don't need a storage for that one. Yeah, I guess is what I'm saying. But yeah, you can reclaim that and then just have the builders to be able to build these faster. And the faster you build, get these T2 mexes upgraded, the faster it's paying for itself. And then after these are upgraded, you can be like looking at the battle, like, can I get away with continuing to upgrade the rest of my mexes? Can I maybe get away with a fusion, if a fusion makes sense in that case? I would say here, you got plenty of energy. Well, I wouldn't say plenty, but you got enough energy for now, so you could even, after you upgrade these 3 mexes here, you could potentially move back here if these are yours and upgrade those. You could potentially move on to some of your mexes up front and upgrade those as well. So it's really just like, okay, do I have time to upgrade these right now? And if you do, that's great. You can just get more ahead and upgrade them quickly by having enough build power to do that. All right, so you're building a fusion here. Again, you don't really need the energy at the moment, so you don't actually need this. And converting it, while that's generally a thing that you do, you want to convert excess energy. It's just not as profitable as upgrading your mexes. So prioritize that if you are doing this for the metal. But I mean, in general, it is good to have a fusion. I would just say maybe grab a couple more mexes since you already have energy. And then once that fusion's done, you can possibly look at, like, can I reclaim some solars? Can I reclaim my advanced solars? Like, what kind of metal can I get returned because I have so much more energy coming in after this fusion? All right, so looking at your opponent's actually like built right back up. They have plenty of wins. They have, this center location. They have the geo. So it's kind of like you're squeezed into this position, this small like little area, trying to just like make sure you don't die, make sure that your team doesn't just die. And for right now in this level of lobby, with the lower OS kind of people here, this will work out kind of just fine. But in higher OS kind of lobbies, the player here will look at the situation, see the walls, see that you got all these defensive towers, and instead of playing here, they'll just ignore you. And they'll send these units down here, or they'll send the units up here, and then they'll support those players. So then it'll be like a 2v1 kind of situation, and that can get quite dicey for some of these players. Brown doing a reasonable job here, by the way, just like, being annoying to your lane. So that's certainly helping you out quite a bit. These pawns trying to break down the wall. And yeah, just gonna have to get out of there because of the Mausers. So some pretty reasonable things happening from your teammates here. Unfortunately, these sprinters, sprinters can be useful, but looking at what's out on the map, like, they just don't have a lot of hit points, and they're kind of just like advanced pawns that cost, pretty significantly more. So while they can be good to get to places and destroy stuff quickly and get through defenses, or actually they're not really good at getting through defenses. They're better at going around defenses. So knowing that there's plenty of units here, it's kind of choky here. Like there's not a lot of room to maneuver or run around the defenses. Like you can't really just run around these fat boys in this position. So that's not as helpful. Maybe they can get in here and do something, but like, you know, pawns can do pretty well against them in some cases. So I don't know if they're really going to be useful there. Potentially, this is a pretty big open area. There isn't much here, at least not on radar. I guess some of it's just being jammed, so you can expect there to maybe be stuff there. So there really isn't much like room for these units to run around defenses, so they're not as useful in this case. Now with Brown taking out this position, actually it is kind of opening up a situation where you can use these, but unfortunately you just don't have the metal to like crank out a lot of them, so you just have a few of them. And that's primarily because you're spending a lot of build power, a lot of your metal on the fusions here. And, you know, and that's kind of okay, because now you can reclaim all these solars, including the advanced ones, because you just have that much excess energy. And you can turn that into more units. Looks like instead you're going to turn it into a pulsar. Yeah, so I mean, I guess I feel like this is kind of a lost opportunity. Like, yes, this is a good defensive move, but there's nothing really to defend at the moment. Like, if your opponent showed up with like a bunch of fat boys up here or something, then this might be useful to keep yourself alive. But until that happens, it's just going to be a bit of a dead weight that isn't going to help you at the moment. Because there's nothing really coming. Well, I guess there is something coming this way, but there's some fat boys down here. So I don't know. Maybe maybe it is a good move here. I mean, I guess for me personally, I'd rather see something like snipers, primarily because they can kind of do the same thing, but they're also mobile. And things like snipers and pulsars cost a lot of energy. They require energy to shoot, but you have 2 fusions, so you can actually afford it here. And yeah, so with those snipers, you can just, you know, target down some of these fat boys, and then you have them, and then they're mobile, so they can actually just like go up here, occupy this space. There's a commander corpse up here still, so you can like reclaim that, get some extra metal, and then start claiming these mexes for yourself. Yeah, and then you also still don't have these upgraded, so it's just like kind of a bit of a blunder to not have those. Also, by the way, just realizing that there is the Geo here. So a Geo is it's one of the most efficient things in terms of energy production in the game. So if you have a Geo at your disposal, especially one that's away from your base, so if it explodes, like, it's not a big deal. Like, it just takes out maybe some of these defenses that are, you know, they're T1 defenses, they don't really matter. And it costs less than a fusion. Like, a lot less. So it costs a little bit more energy, but it's only 1,600 metal compared to the fusion, which is 4,300. So if you have a Geo at your disposal, typically you want to upgrade that before you upgrade, or before you build fusions. Unless it's, you know, it could be like in an unsafe location, in which case, yeah, I guess you could do the fusion then, but yeah, ideally upgrade this instead. It's just far cheaper, and it gives you more energy. If we take a look here, produces 1250 energy, which is a lot considering it's only 1,600 metal, compared to a fusion that produces only 1,000 energy and costs, you know, at least double. Like 2.5 times the amount of metal. So definitely a good call to build that instead. Alright, so I'm going to speed up here. I know that this match goes kind of long, and your commander gets bombs, stuff like that happens, so not really the biggest of deals at this point. You can either choose to reclaim that metal, get that metal back, put it somewhere else, or you can spend it on, or you can, reclaim, or sorry, what am I trying to say? You can resurrect the commander if you wanted to as well. Even though you have a T2 lab, don't feel as though you need to stick to having a T2 lab. You have extra metal, so you could actually make a T1 lab and have the T2 lab. Either way, you should probably be looking to spend this. You don't really want your metal to overflow. Like, it's fine that it does, it goes to your teammates, so like it helps your team out in general, but in terms of you and your position, it is, you know, it does mean that you're just not gonna have that metal for later to be able to build stuff with, and you want to be able to build stuff and do things. All right, so you are building these pulsars, which is great. Potentially you could have a few more butlers assisting this T2 con so that you build it faster instead of waiting for that minute and a half or 2 minutes or whatever it is for the full thing. You can get it done just like, you know, potentially in a minute or potentially less because you already have all the metals you need for it. But yeah, I mean, overall, this is kind of it's just a really tricky situation here because you don't have these, once again, because you haven't upgraded some of these mexes, because you didn't grab the Geo. So this review is basically just looking at all these little bits that can be made more efficient, either by, you know, just doing it sooner and not paying as much attention to having like those early pawns out, but instead of paying attention to grabbing those mexes with some cons earlier. I guess I should probably speak on that a little bit more. Like if you had, so you have your T1 bot lab, you have your commander, you boost out a couple of cons. Your first one should probably be already going back here to grab these. I mean, you could have had this mex sooner as well. Like you could have started with it, I guess is what I'm saying, and put your lab like over here instead of like wherever it ended up being. But like for whatever reason, if you didn't want to have that early, you know, you could grab that first before heading back here with your cons. But the important thing that I just want to get across is to try to prioritize getting that income, because that'll just help you make things faster. And double the income is certainly, you know, that like basically translates into twice as many units. So just having all those extra units would allow you to contest this up here a lot better. But yeah, the game is certainly ramping up. It's more, you know, T3 phase at this point. You know, it's 32 minutes into the game, so very much needs to be more like late game, like, you know, big macro focus for a lot of these players. Yeah, I mean, Brown doing a pretty good job with just the air units, but a little bit late on the fusions. You know, this player here, oh my god, lots of solar. Definitely should be more in the you know, fusion camp at this point. You know, this player here, a couple of well, it's a lot of fusions and a couple of aphises, so this is actually pretty good for the OS that they are, the one Chev that they are. You know, more fusions back here. So basically what I'm trying to say is you want to try to at least keep par with these guys in terms of just like upgrading your economy. And so once again, that's a lot of it is just more like make sure that you're grabbing all these mexes as soon as you can. Make sure you're upgraded all of them as soon as you can, and then, you know, build on fusions as you need to support your you know, your upgraded mexes and support getting more of those. And you know, as you get more and more metal income, you just need more and more energy, so, you know, you add that on as need be, and eventually just get more and more fusions, because then you can convert it, and that's really more about like after you already have all these things upgraded, you can't really get metal otherwise, then it's good to start doing like fusions just to convert into metal. But yeah, your metal's really high right now, so I guess just to speak to like how all that operates, or how you know, generally us mentors, we try to point it out like in this triangle, right? There's the triangle of, you know, there's metal, energy, and build power, and build power is kind of like a third resource. So with that in mind, it's sort of like, okay, if you need energy, build energy. And that's really important because if you don't have enough energy, mexes turn off, your stuff builds slowly. You know, like, it's very important to have it so that things can actually do what they're intended to do. Like, you know, this basilica costs energy to fire, so you need to have enough energy. You can see it like draining when it shoots. Like, it comes like all the way down because it's 5,000 to shoot this thing. You know, so it's really important to keep tabs on your energy. For that reason. By the way, when you have stuff like this that take a lot of energy to shoot, it's a good idea to have some energy storage, just so that you're not just draining your energy every time it shoots. And that way, you're also able to store up energy for a rainy day, and it really does not cost that much metal. So, would highly recommend that. But anyways, going back to my points. So if you need energy, build energy. That's like the first thing, because if you don't have energy, your mexes turn off and you're not making metal. Metal is harder to get than energy, so you want to prioritize grabbing that ASAP. But as you grab that, you need enough energy to be able to spend it. So it's important to keep up and keep building energy as you're making more metal. And then in order to spend that metal, you need build power. So right now, or I should say first, like, as a rule of thumb, if you have your metal increasing, you want to add on more build power. And that means more construction turrets if you're trying to just crank out units faster or do things faster at your base. And other times it means mobile build power if you're trying to build things outside of your base. So anytime your metal starts rising, you want to be doing that, and you want to make sure that you have enough energy to also spend, in order to spend your metal, essentially. So the fact that you have a very full metal bar at this point means that you want to prioritize, you know, spending more on being able to spend more, if that makes any sense. You know, so like, you know, the construction turrets, essentially. But yeah, that would allow you to build these things faster and just have more of them. And, you know, that's really what bar is about, is just like cranking that up so that you're able to afford more things, and afford those more things faster. So it's 41 minutes into the game. If this was a high OS kind of game, all these players would have probably like 8 aphises at this point, or so, like, or more, or more. They could have even like the player in this position would probably have like a dozen, or actually, I mean, at 40 minutes, honestly, they'd probably have like 40 aphises or something. You know, like their middle income would be like near 1,000 or something like that. You know, and able to just crank out T3 units probably just as quickly as you're cranking out T2 units right now. So yeah, just work on, I would say, just work on building that up, work on, you know, managing your economy, paying attention to your metal bar and energy bar, and just making sure that you're not accessing metal, and make sure that you're grabbing those mexes a lot faster if you're able to. And then you're just going to have a lot more things to be able to do things like threaten this position, or support red, or support orange. You know, and then after that, you can start paying attention to, like, okay, you know, I potentially could threaten this location. You know, maybe they have too many defenses there. Maybe instead I'll just go somewhere else, because if they spend a lot of money on defenses now, they don't have money to push me. You know, so that it's kind of like better to just be elsewhere and just say, like, well, you can have that metal, but, you know, I'm going to apply pressure somewhere else, and because you spent so much on defenses, you can't really help that out. But yeah, the Supreme Isthmus game kind of went somewhat similarly, where you know, you built a T2 lab when you could have gotten a T2 con from somebody else, and that's like a big, I think, one of the major takeaways, because it saves you so much time, so much money, and you can just spend that on units instead. Here, I guess you're supporting red with the ticks, which is all good. I mean, I would say maybe you want these to be a little bit more spread out. It's like one big hit from you know, from anything will just take out all the ticks. Like, yeah, the wind turbines chaining right there just took out all your ticks. And the push got stopped there. So this, I mean, this becomes a very interesting part of the game where, you know, you start pushing T3 and then you're leaving these T3 wrecks behind, and that means your opponents can start resurrecting those units and picking them up for, you know, to have on their side. So like any push becomes very challenging in terms of like you don't want to gift them those units by accident, which kind of just makes the game a little bit more geared towards like, oh, you should be spending on economy, because then you just have more economy, let your opponent make the mistake of pushing, you know, and just if you're able to defend it and eco harder than they're able to, then you'll be able to have a bigger, stronger push later on than they will.
Commander has self-destructed.
Yeah, zooming out and looking at like what else is going on this map, like you got all these basilicas. I think Pink had a bunch of basilicas as well, but it's been since taken out. You have your own basilica. I mean, basilicas are great. You know, just to be able to hit long-range targets. So it's not a bad move to have them. Let's see, the EMPs are not a bad move. I will say 4 is a little excessive at this point, but I suppose like that just means like you're going to be able to shut down like everything that comes this way. So I suppose it's not like the end of the world. But yeah, it is very hard to help your teammates when you don't have the economy to do too much. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for what I wanted to say for this review. So I'm just gonna like speed it up and just see how this game ends. Hopefully it's not like hours later or something. I would assume that it ends kinda soon. But I think the red player here is just sending these Titans around, like trying to find where they're going to be best utilized. You know, and sometimes that's not the middle area because there can just be a lot of stuff that can intercept them. There's a lot of units that can potentially stop the Titans. Oh, well, the nuke helps. That certainly takes out a lot of units. I mean, there's an anti-nuke. Oh, I guess it's being built still, so yeah. Nukes are pretty good at this point, but they are so expensive. I mean, yeah, it would not be worth it for you to have a nuke, but it's good that somebody does, just to be able to shut down pushes.
Commander died.
Oof. Yeah, I mean, I do kind of want to point out that I think for a lot of people, and I'm actually going to turn this down because the game gets so loud at this point. Hopefully you could hear me through all that. But I wanted to point out that I think from your team's perspective, it's sort of like you guys don't have these mexes, like they are holding here very well. You guys have been mostly unable to push here. You know, maybe a little successful here, but like, you know, it kind of feels bad for your team. Like it feels like there isn't that much, like it kind of feels like a lost state, right? And I would say that that's not necessarily true. Even though that they have more units, you guys have actually the income lead at this point. So it's kind of only a matter of time. Assuming that you guys don't just like throw away units constantly, like you should be able to build up to a big enough push to win. And yeah, with your lower income, like I don't mind this. I don't mind that you're like helping out with spam or helping out with sprinters. Because it's like as soon as a front gets broken, if you're able to just swarm a base, like that's how you easily destroy it. Like these units are easily destroyed, but if there's nothing to destroy them, they can destroy stuff very quickly. So it's not a bad call. Even supporting the front a little bit with these pulsars in case you guys are pushed. I mean, I think at the time you guys were pushed when you built these, so that's kind of fine. If you were to build a bigger unit, you could do snipers. Snipers are your best option with this lab against T3. I should also point this out. So you're building, okay, so you're building T3 units, you're building T2 units, you're building T1 units, and you're building an APHIS. You just don't have the money to do all this. And so it's kind of better to do one of these things at a time. I mean, okay, so the T2 lab and the T1 lab, like this is kind of like a combination of like this is useful together.
Commander has fallen.
And this is not very, it's not really that expensive. So it's fine that you have both of these things. But when you start adding on a T3 lab and a fusion, and you even started an air lab, it's just a lot. Fusions or advanced fusions are very, very expensive, and they take a long time to build. So ideally, what you want instead is to stop production of these things. And if you wanted to, you can even reclaim them, assuming that you have enough metal storage. Like, so if you don't have the storage, build a metal storage first. But yeah, ideally, you'd want to basically reclaim this stuff, have the metal, and just have more build power working towards building this a lot quicker. Because this has already been building for like several minutes here. And it's just taking such a long time that like you're basically not doing anything. You're basically not building much. Like things are being built so slowly because there's so many things going on. It's too many ways for your metal to be split up into all these different things. So yeah, just better to do one thing. One big thing at a time, I should say. So whether that be T3 stuff or an APHIS, that's kind of your choice. But just to do one at a time is going to be better. So you can do things, for example, like, let's say you have a T3 lab, you're producing T3 units, and you're like, okay, I kind of want a fusion right now, or I want to have another APHIS, I want to grow my economy. It's totally fine to have a storage, reclaim your T3 lab, have a bunch of build power, put it all into the fusion, build a couple of converters, and then rebuild your T3 lab. And that way you have that fusion quicker, and it's able to pay for itself a lot sooner. In order for it to pay for itself, you kind of need to have a couple of, at least some converters for it as well.
Commander has self-destructed.
All right, so the game is over. Sorry, I didn't really pay much attention to that because I was talking about this. But to go back to what I was saying, yeah, you absolutely can reclaim this. And you definitely don't. It's just like a lot. It's just so many things going on at the same time. And just for the, I guess, for the know-how, typically for basic fusions, it's like 1.5 converters per fusion. In some cases, if you have a lot of metal nodes that have mexes on them, it can be a little bit more like, like 1 converter to a fusion, or even sometimes like half a converter per fusion, depending on your metal income, because you need that, you need some energy to be able to use that metal. In fact, in some cases for 1v1s, it can be like you just need a fusion for the energy purely, so you don't really build converters. So you want to pay attention to this a little bit to make that decision. But either way, yeah, just as a heads up, in case you don't know this, it's about 4 to 5 energy converters, advanced energy converters to an APHIS. You do 4 because if you're converting some, you have some extra metal coming in because you're converting it, and then you need a little bit of energy that you're producing from the fusion to help out, as to like build stuff with as well. So so you'll see 4 in that case. Or if you're building nothing else, you can do 5 because technically 3000 energy coming in is 5 converters, since it's 600 per converter to make 10 metal. But yeah, hopefully anybody that's still watching this has learned something. I know I took this one a little bit slower. I really wanted to break down some of that like early game like economy stuff. So I hope you guys have learned something. And yeah, if you have any questions, definitely feel free to ask them in the thread, or if you're just watching this on YouTube, you can put you can do it in comments as well, whatever floats your boat. But yeah, this is Zeteo. I'm gonna sign out. Thanks for watching.